All right, number 21, since we're on gender issues, and actually gender issues do loom very large in these contentions, not just because it's one of the few things that modern people really get extremely passionate about. People are pretty laid back and apathetic about most things, but they really believe in gender equality and the evils of patriarchy, so that features. But also because it's intrinsically important. It's to do with the bifurcation of creation and also man and woman as signs. This is also Quranic perspective. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Of his signs is that he has created for you from your own kind spouses, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you might find rest in them. And there's a whole tradition of Islamic metaphysics about gender polarity. So that's one reason why there's a lot of gender stuff in these. So number 21, anthropomorphism is gender biased. And then I say this is close to contention 4/61, which runs as follows: how to rebridge the sexes to reach the point of reconciliation. Only the logos can achieve this, and a logos that is ungendered. What this means is religio, the word means binding, and essentially binding the finite to the infinite, that big paradox, so that we can, in some meaningful, authentic sense, relate to the infinite, which, by being infinite, is categorically unlike ourselves. That bridge, that ontological gulf in Christianity, is effected through the incarnation, the being who is simultaneously finite and infinite, limited and unlimited, but in time, but timeless. And that paradox is what Christianity is all about. The Logos, the Word made flesh. In Islam, the Word is not made flesh because that's not possible. The infinite can't be squeezed into a finite form. A being cannot be simultaneously limited and unlimited at the same time. The paradoxes are too confounding. But instead, what we have is a radical metaphysic linked to the point about Tawheed that I made earlier, which says that the boundary between the infinite and the finite is radically eroded by the fact that the finite has no autonomous existence anyway. It's absolutely dependent on the infinite. Kullu lahu qanitun. Everything is submissive to him. And he is Nuru samawati wal ard, the light of the heavens and the earth. And everything else in the world of kathra or differentiation is like shadows, that they exist insofar as you can observe shadows and write about them. But as Plato knew very well, what really matters is the light that is casting the shadows. And that essentially is our metaphysic of radical divine power. So, mediation, therefore, isn't quite the point in Islam. What are you mediating between? Particularly Western Christianity, Eastern Orthodoxy, and this is many areas actually much closer to Islam on this. But for Western Christianity, you have radical ideas of the otherness of creation. The doctrine of original sin, the doctrine of the fall, as Augustine understands it, the unworthiness of the body. All of these things create the world as almost a dualistic alternative to God. And the believers are to be in the city of God, title of one of Augustine's works. That's the church, and outside it is a world where everything's gone wrong and God isn't really controlling it properly. It's in a state of rebellion. That's not our perspective at all. So in the Islamic sense, obviously the Khaliq, categorically unlike the Makhluq. The Creator is nothing to do with the created. Laysa kamithlihi shay. Nothing is like his likeness, the Quran says. It doesn't even say nothing is like him. It says nothing is like his likeness. Laysa kamithlihi shay. Radical aphoretic dissociation of language about creation from anything that could be said about God. But at the same time, the insistence through tashbih that absolutely everything that exists in this world is the unmediated operation of the divine qualities. So imminence radical transcendence and radical imminence, both so radical that they kind of collapse into one another. And that again is characteristic of our metaphysics, and very unlike the Christian, at least the Western Christian idea. So issues of the problem of suffering and the problem of evil, which are really a big issue in Western Christian theology, don't really present themselves in the same way in our metaphysic. So a kind of mediator like Jesus, who is God but is from the human realm at the same time, you don't need something like that really in an Islamic context, because what is the gulf that is being bridged? The gulf in terms of tanzih, for sure, but that's so unutterable that it couldn't be bridged. But in the world of tashbih, immanentism, what exactly is being bridged between what and what? Everything is the divine names anyway, and our doctrine says that the divine names, from a certain perspective, are not differentiated from the divine essence, so what's going on anyway? But where we do have the idea of a communication is in the Qur'an. So if, and some Orientalists like to use this parallel, in Christianity the word is made flesh, in Islam the word is made book. And immediately we start to fidget and think it can't be that simple, and it isn't that simple, of course, because in Christianity you can worship the word, you can worship Christ. In Islam you can't worship the Qur'an. It's not God amongst us, but still it's qadim, uncreated, partaking in a mysterious way in the uncreated nature of the divine, and that's one of our difficult theological issues. But the point of this contention, to get down to the point, is anthropomorphism is gender biased. One of the big things that feminist theologians say is it's unfair that the once and for all sole mediatory divine initiative in the world is a man. Jesus of Nazareth, very much male. Not male in certain performative ways, so he doesn't fall in love, he doesn't get married, he doesn't have children, so male, but still male in the sense of not female. And that's a problem for a lot of Christians. Rosemary Ruther, Mary Daly, Carol Gilligan, a lot of Christian theologians, Janet Soskis here in the University of Cambridge, exercised by the fact that the mediator is male rather than androgynous or female. And if you look at some modern Christian feminist art, you'll see that there's a woman on the cross or some other thing, but of course that's just an expression of dissatisfaction with the reality that's described in their scriptures. It doesn't really solve that problem. But in the context of Islam, the mediating phenomenon is not a human being. Its bearer is a human being, but what counts with the Holy Prophet ﷺ is the message that he is bringing. The word. He is not the word is the word. So in Christianity, the word made flesh. In Islam, the word made word, which kind of makes sense anyway. And that's not gendered. Jesus, the man, male DNA, presumably, but a book is a book. Who's to say whether this is male or female? Languages might have conventions, but it doesn't signify anything. So the great mazhar, the great manifestation of the divine uncreatedness in the world, the text that is uncreated, and this is axiomatic in our Sunni aqidah, صفة الموصوف بالقدم آيات من الرحمن محدثة قديمة صفة الموصوف بالقدم. Signs from the all-compassionate, renewed, but ancient and uncreated. Their quality is the quality of him who has no beginning. This is against the Mu'tazilites. The Sunnis believe the Qur'an has no beginning. They're before the world, whatever it could mean for that to be before time, because time is part of the world, so what does it mean? But certainly not coming into being with the coming into being of the world. So the book that brings about this mediation, although it has things to say in its discursive modality, which are about gender, is not itself a manifestation that implies the ontological primacy of a particular gender, and this has to be important. Theology is the quest for the least silly definition of God. Well, that's very Ghazalian. Ma'ruf and munkar are defined by the fitra, that is a kind of idea of natural law. Forget not the other in the brother. Zionism, God's sword unleashed against Jerusalem. There's quite a lot of stuff in these about the Arab-Israeli issue as a kind of figure or a symbol of the deep polarities in today's world, the power of those who have and the power and the weakness of those who have not, the emblem of the Isaac-Ishmael disparity. Islam is the crown of the poor is the same kind of idea.